Thanks for joining us on the NRT Now podcast, part of the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Sit back and relax as we chat with your favorite artists, introduce you to new artists, and more. Now here's your host, Jake.
So we are here with the host of the 10th Annual We Love Awards, the host with the most, the master of ceremony. I don't know what other words we can put in there, Branan, but we got Branan Murphy here with us.
You know, I always wanted to be an MC. Not necessarily like that, but whatever it takes to get MC next to my name.
So I've been avoiding you all day just so I can tell this one story. Okay, I really haven't. It sounded better. It sounded like a better story.
Are we sure this is a podcast? Or is this a confessional? What is this? You've been avoiding me. Oh, no.
See, this is why we're down here, is to really confess our sin. No, I wanted to make sure that the story was real and impactful. We've actually met before.
Oh, wow.
We have, and I'm really offended that you don't recognize me. I'm really not.
You guys, this moment right here is getting tense.
It's a little tense in here. No, so it was 2018. Okay. It was a festival in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming.
Okay. Yo.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember this one or not.
Okay.
This festival in Wyoming.
Yeah.
That day it thundered, it rained. Mandisa was headlining that day.
Yes, possibly.
You guys can't see this, but it's like starting to.
Okay. I remember a rain show. I mean, I've had a couple of those, so yeah.
You guys can't see this, but the puzzle pieces are starting to click here.
They're coming.
My first introduction to Branan Murphy was getting handed a phone from the event coordinator saying, "Hey, Branan needs help getting here. He's lost. Will you help him? Will you help get him, drive him in?" And then that was when AT&T wasn't in the service. So like I had you for like 5 minutes trying to help you, and then the phone just died. And
oh no,
you made it there. So
it was
an amazing show and
all
amazing
thanks to
set.
you, clearly.
Well, the phone dropped out, so it must have been like I must have been sending it like telepathically, just like, God, please let Branan get here safe.
And he knew that we would have this moment
all these years later
to bring it full circle.
Well, the funny part about that too was you were on the Air One. It wasn't Hits Deep. It was
Positive Hits Tour. Yeah.
Positive Hits Tour.
Yeah.
And I live in Dallas, so I flew up for that because that was hometown. And then a few months later, here I see Branan Murphy out by his table.
Oh man!
And we had a moment. We hugged it out.
I love that.
It was a great moment.
I love that. I'm so happy to spend time with you again. This is rad. That's a crazy story, and I love that. That Positive Hits Tour was great. So that I'm glad we have that connection too. It's crazy how like throughout a music career, how many of those instances and people you meet, and it's great. Like, music's about people. Life is about people. Music has intrinsic value and beauty. It's such a gift from God, right? It's the universal language that we all speak, and it connects with our hearts so that we can connect with each other. If music is not the way for us to get to people, then what are we really doing,
And I just remember watching you through that Positive Hits Tour, just at your booth. And that's one of the most fun things for me to see is just the artist interactions at the booth and just being able to talk to people. And for a couple years, it wasn't, hug people, but,
Right. It's a little weird for a bit there.
Air high fives or, stairs across the room, high waves.
Yes. Like far away selfies.
Yes. But just watching you guys being able to connect, and like you said, music is the universal language, and it just opens so many doors.
For sure.
And just sometimes expresses what people are trying to get their heads around. But your story that comes out through a song, or just even something in there that clicks with somebody that's like, yes, that's it. That just has that opportunity to impact a life. It's just incredible. And then being able to, not everybody gets the chance to go to the table after the show, because I think Toby Mac would never be able to go home if that were the case.
It's just different. Yeah, it's just different.
But it's awesome to see when you guys are able to connect with people who listen to your music and are just able to, you guys to see that impact and hear those stories that come back to you. It's one of the most fun things to see after a concert.
Oh man, I love that, because I hope that never gets old to us, like living for those moments. Like I said, this is about people.
And I love how music can just start a conversation with somebody that you would never even been able to connect with in a in a different scenario,
Right.
whether, it's, different culture, different region of the country, whatever that is. But music being that universal language just has that ability to connect us, even when a lot of times we think that we're miles apart, we're completely different. But there's that song that just captures that emotion, that captures that thought.
For sure.
That just makes that connection. And it's just something that really, I think, can help make us stronger when we make those connections across things that we never thought was possible.
Yeah. And I've tried to, it's been kind of natural for me, this with my vision and my belief about art and who we are as God's people, as Christ followers, and how we make art and what our purpose is within that. Like, a lot of my music does speak to, at least, to this point, if you've listened to my music to this point, that I speak a lot about the human condition. And I think that I try to write songs where anybody can see themselves in them, and like these kind of universal truths about just who we are. That's part of what gets the gospel, the absolute truth, the solitary, single, only truth, Jesus being the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. Like, the way that we get people there is to connect with them in a way that everyone can say, yeah, that's me. Like, you're talking about your own heart, but you're talking about mine too. And that's what you learn when you, the more that we come to know God, the more we see that we're all the same. We all have one problem, and that is sin. And there's one solution to that problem, and that is Christ. And so, I think it's just important to be able to connect first, though, in order to take those steps towards Jesus. And so it's really important to me to write in such a way that says, like, hey, we're all the same. I'm just like you. We're just 8 billion people on this planet who all need Jesus.
That's so true. And I think we've seen this amplified over the last 2 or 3 years. We keep getting told that we're different, that my neighbor over here is different from me for pick a reason. Just spin the wheel.
Sure.
Here's the reason why. We're too low budget to have good sound effects on this podcast.
I got you. That was a game show spinner right there. That was what that was, that sound effect.
But I mean, you're right. It comes down to the core of sin. No matter what we're talking about, no matter what the subject is, sin is at the heart of everything. And whether our problem looks different on one side or the other, I just love how that's at the core of your music, and that's just what we really need to hear. Yeah, especially in this moment, in this point in our culture where everything is going absolutely mad.
Yeah, and people want to know that they're not alone. It was Tim Keller that said that all the essence of being a human is this deep desire of wanting to be known and loved. So that's really important. We got to let people know, like, hey, you're not alone in your struggles. You're not alone in your desires. Like, you're loved even in the midst of those. And so, yeah, man, I think like the message that can unify in a very divided time in our world, definitely our country, but in our world is the message of the gospel. It's the only thing that's going to set us free and give us lasting peace and lasting unity with each other. So this is the time for us to be, really strategic and to really care about people and really meet them where they are and be open to listening. I mean, the things that make us different, they do matter, and so we can't just, try to throw a gospel Band-Aid on stuff and just say, like, just preach the gospel and don't meet people where they are and don't try to understand them. No, because of the gospel, we need to seek to understand and seek to listen and seek to love people, where they are. The only unifying power is the power that God has. And so it's crucial right now, for sure.
I think we use some of these kind of Christian phrases, like just love them through. And sometimes I think we miss the toughness of it. Like you said, I love the word Band-Aid. Like, we slap a lot of Band-Aids on things sometimes when it gets a little tough, and that's something that strikes me when you see Jesus and through the Bible. Like, he actually sits down with the sinners. He's says, Zacchaeus, come on, I'm coming to your house.
I'm coming to your house. Right, exactly.
Like, how crazy is that?
Bro, this podcast is about to be 3 hours if we're going there, because that is such my heartbeat. And again, it's my heartbeat because I believe it's Christ's heartbeat, that he was labeled, known as a friend of sinners. I wonder, as Christ followers, are we known as friend of sinners? Or are we known as those who sinners, if you will, try to avoid or have ungodly opinions about. I want to be known as a friend of sinners. I want to be the light of the world. That's what Jesus said. You're the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. We can't just always be the light of the church. Light, like the mission and the purposes of God are, there's so much that's exciting about life in the future because we have so much opportunity. I'm just praying that God would use me.
So, as we're talking about this and your heart for being the friend of sinners and all that,
yeah,
how does that weave through the music? Could you talk about how that's kind of gone into the songs and that life and that heart has gone into some of the songs? I know you've had some awesome hits not long ago, and then as that's coming through, what's coming out with you in the near future here?
Yeah, I think that will always be like my heartbeat. I think you'll always find those aspects in my music and in my lyrics. Again, just those connection points. I want to be that kind of artist that everybody feels like they can relate to, whether you're a Christian who has been following Jesus your whole life, or no one follows for their whole life, but you know what I mean? You've been following Jesus for a long time, for decades, or whether you're a new believer, or whether you're not, whether you're skeptical about God, whether you don't like God, whether you are indifferent towards him. Like, I hope to always make music that connects me with everybody. But I'm very excited about what's coming. These last couple of years of my life have been probably the hardest years of my life. I've had my identity challenged, and my faith has been challenged in a lot of ways, and just gone through some hard stuff. That's what life and difficulty and suffering does. But the Bible teaches us, like, that's what produces character. And then character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint because God has poured out his love in our hearts, by the Spirit. That's Romans 5 right there, that like, I've had to hold on to that because it's been a lot of like character development and growth as a man and like things like that. But I'm coming out of it so hopeful, and I think the music is like reflecting that like this is some of probably the most honest and real but hopeful music that I've made thus far.
Speaking of not being alone, I think that's been a lot of us when we were forced to stop being busy to mask whatever was going on, whether it's not being able to be on the road for 2 years and being stuck at home, or whatever that looked like. I mean, there's just so much that hit us with a fire hose that we just couldn't hide from anymore. And I mean, we have this thing that's sweeping the country right now. I was talking with a friend, and like a counselor is months out right now, where it used to be pretty easy. Counselors are booked for months. So what does that say for what's happening in our country right now? I mean, that's just our country. And I mean, we see what's happening in Australia and Canada and Europe. Yeah. I mean, we've just been faced with so much this year that, you're definitely not alone in that cry, and just having to figure all this crap out.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, as hard as it's been, like, I'm thankful. That's the kindness of God. And that's what he says. That's what the scriptures say, that the kindness of God leads to repentance. And he disciplines us like sons. I have a son. When I discipline him, it is absolutely because I love him and I'm seeking out what I believe is best for him. I always say that sometimes I feel like the only reason that God ever allowed us to have kids is just so that he can teach us what his love is like for us, because we're his kids, And so I've just seen that a lot, that yes, this has been extremely hard. My family's been through some things. We've suffered some things, but I wouldn't trade it. Like, I just would not trade it for the world. Like, I wouldn't trade the person that I'm becoming. I wouldn't trade it how strong my faith is. On the music side, like, I've been reminded through this time, because I've been so desperate. I've been so desperate for God. I've been so desperate just for his nearness. And I've been reminded of how I'm a worshiper first. I've led worship for a long time. I still lead worship at my church. It's been a big part of who I am musically as well. So I've been reminded, like, I'm a worshiper first. And when hard things happen, God calls us to worship through them. And so even this next, I don't want to give it away, but even this next album that I'm working on, there's kind of stuff that you would expect from me. But then there's going to be some Branan Murphy worship stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to that, because it's just where I've been. It's where my heart has been.
And I think we lump worship into a genre. It has to be Hillsong or it has to be Elevation, which, I mean, they're amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
Vertical. We could, there's a whole radio station devoted to worship, I think, somewhere. But, I love how you say that, because you look at Meshach, Rashach, and Abednego, Rakshak and Benny, for those of us who are old enough for that. Little bit of VeggieTales kit throwback.
There you go.
But I mean, it wasn't until they actually got in the fire, I mean, worshiping through being in the fire and everything, that's where they're really shining, where they're really able to start their ministry. And
yeah, of course.
I mean, that was the power. I mean, it took literally going into the fire. Or you look at Daniel, who was thrown into the lion's den. Or, I mean, example after example after example of that through the Bible, that's where those defining moments were. They weren't in the fluffy pieces that everybody felt good and life was good. It was those moments.
I heard a pastor say one time, for God to use you greatly, he must wound you deeply. I don't come out of these wounds, if you will. Like, I don't come out of them thinking, oh, now God's going to use me greatly. Like, I don't want my heart to be wrong in that. I'm thankful for just the hand of God being on me, even if it is, his hand of discipline and his hand of growth through tough times. Like, I'm literally just thankful to be alive and thankful for all that he has for me, because I know whatever it is, it's good. But I do feel more, there's like a lot that's stirring in me right now. And I do feel very excited about what he has for me next, and all the ways, hopefully, that I'll get to serve him and impact people moving forward. I'm very excited about this next season.
One of the things that kind of gets overlooked as we go through these fires and all through these storms is, on the other side of that, you get through that, you heal from the wounds and all that. It's about helping others. And it doesn't have to be new Branan Murphy album that we're going to try and sneak out how much of this we can. But I mean, it doesn't have to be an album, or it doesn't have to be from a pulpit or whatever. It could just be the conversation with the neighbor next door, or family. Like, we go through all this stuff, and I don't think that we're called to just suffer and move on. We're called to help others that are going through that as well. Like, part of my story is we've gone through miscarriages in between our sets of kids. Just recently, we found out that someone close to us had a miscarriage as well. And I was able to give her the words that she was trying to think about, how she was feeling, just to really put in the words. And for me, I was just like, hey, this is someone close to me that I need to take care of.
Right.
What wound up happening that I found out later was it had a much bigger impact than I even knew about at the time. Like I said, it doesn't have to be an album on a stage, or an artist on the stage. It doesn't have to be an album. It doesn't have to be anything major, grandiose, or spotlight. I mean, those are the moments that I think we overlook sometimes, is when we go through what we go through.
Absolutely. And I want that to be true for me, that I'm not just looking to write a song and somehow benefit from my trials in that way. Like, if we're not concerned about our neighbor, which is what Jesus called us to anyway, love me with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, your strength, and love your neighbor, as yourself. And like, we live in a society even that makes margin in your life and in your day to love your neighbor so sometimes impossible. We think that busyness is what leads to success. And, in the economy of God, it's love and considering others better than yourself, and how that affects your time. Like, that's success in the kingdom, and so I hope that I can be like you, and you mentioned it, like the things we go through are they're for the sake of other people. That's what 2 Corinthians 1 says, that praise be to the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our trials and suffering so that we can comfort those. Like, God wants to comfort his people, his creation. And the way he does that so often is that's why you've gone through what you've gone through, is so you can comfort somebody else. And there's so much joy in that. I'm sure you would say, like, the joy that you felt, even though it all started with heartache and pain, the joy that you feel in coming alongside somebody and helping them and blessing them, and God using you to comfort them, makes it all worth it.
We have another family member that had kind of walked through that same journey, and watching my wife connect with her and the joy that my wife has, as they're having a baby, they're way down the line, like they're getting ready for the planning, and watching my wife just be so excited, like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there for this baby. I'm going to celebrate this, and I'm going to party, just watching that joy wash over that whole situation. I mean, there's just so much power in watching that joy happen.
It's beautiful.
After watching my wife suffer and go through that, and then watching her cry every time this family member had a miscarriage, to just see that joy as she's planning her trip to go be there and celebrate and all that. It's just so powerful.
It's beautiful, man. It's how it's supposed to be.
So as we wrap up this episode here, we've got to get the details for this new music. Like, since you're here, I'm going to lean on this and let's see what kind of sneak peek that we can get out of this.
Well, I will say I got to keep a lot of that under wraps because the project's not finished, and the thing that makes music what it is, or one of the things that makes it what it is like things are just constantly changing. You just never know what a year is going to bring or the next few months. So I'll just let you know I'm working on a big project. We'll see how it all plays out. But the first single, my next single is the first single from the project. And then my next single is called Love Won't Let Go. It'll be released on March 18th. And hopefully we'll be on your local radio station before that, a little bit before that, and throughout this spring. And so I'm looking forward to that. And there will be lots more music after that. I promise.
Since we're not getting all the details, I'm going to say that there's going to be a hip hop song on there. There's going to be a rock song. We're just going to make this a super diverse album.
Yeah.
I'm just going to speak into this.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no truth to this but I'm going to say it anyway.
Well, some of that would probably be safe to say because I'm that kind of guy. My sound is diverse. I'm definitely going to tap into that more and explore that more with this record. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to, let me be so cliche, but I'm really looking forward to the future and can't wait for you to hear what's coming.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we just appreciate you hanging out with us, Branan, and we're so excited for the show tonight. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be loud.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with us for this episode of the NRT Now podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And special thanks to Neon Feather for providing our theme music. Make sure to check out newreleasetoday.com and our socials for more great content. See you next episode.